Galactic arena crowds mocked human warriors. Until one stepped into the ring, the Galactic arena was unlike anything humans had ever imagined. Towering structures made of shimmering metal stretched into the sky, reflecting the light of three suns. Spectator stands spiraled endlessly around the central field, filled with beings from countless worlds. Their shapes, colors, and sizes were as varied as the stars themselves. Some floated effortlessly above the stands, while others were enormous, their voices rumbling like distant thunder. The air vibrated with excitement, cheers, and laughter, a constant reminder that this was a place where reputation mattered more than strength alone. Humans, a new species to the arena, had quickly become a source of amusement. Despite their intelligence, humans were small and fragile compared to most competitors. They had no natural armor, no claws, no energy shields, no bioluminescent weapons. Their skin was soft, their muscles ordinary. Every alien commentator and spectator whispered jokes about how humans would fail, and often the humans themselves laughed nervously at their own reputation. This year, however, the human delegation had a single contestant, a man named Elias. He was neither large nor intimidating. His brown hair fell into his eyes as he adjusted his simple training suit. He had trained in secret for years, not for brute strength but for endurance, observation, and quick thinking. His fellow humans had done their best to prepare him for the arena's unique challenges. Elias had studied the patterns of other species, the rhythm of the competitions, and the way even the strongest beings made mistakes when pressured in the wrong way. When the announcer called his name, the crowd erupted into laughter. Beings taller than buildings waved their hands and floated above the stands, mocking the human as he stepped forward. "A human?" one alien commentator rasped, its voice like grinding stone. "They barely last a minute in the trials. Watch, this one will fall before the first challenge even begins." Elias ignored the noise. He focused on the field, noting every detail, the slopes, the shadows, the barriers, the way the sun bounced off the arena walls. He understood that intimidation could not protect him, and strength alone would not help. He needed to rely on something no other species had fully mastered: adaptability and patience. The first round was simple in concept but difficult in execution. The contestants were placed in a simulated environment that constantly changed. Shifting platforms, moving obstacles, and unexpected weather patterns made it impossible to simply charge forward. Many competitors lunged recklessly, trying to use sheer force to reach the end, only to fall into traps or slide off the platforms. Elias moved slowly, deliberately. He watched each shift, each pattern, and adjusted his movements accordingly. When a platform tilted dangerously, he shifted his weight just enough to maintain balance. When a moving wall threatened to block his path, he waited, observing the timing, and stepped forward at precisely the right moment. To the crowd, it looked like luck. To Elias, it was the result of careful observation and patience. Some aliens began to notice that he was not simply surviving, he was advancing. Slowly, steadily, he moved through the environment, passing competitors who had relied only on strength or speed. The laughter of the spectators softened, replaced by curious murmurs. "Look at him," one being said, its multiple eyes wide. "He doesn't panic, he's thinking." The next challenge tested endurance. Contestants had to navigate a maze filled with constantly shifting corridors and obstacles. The paths were designed to confuse, trap, and exhaust. Many species, used to relying on brute force to overcome barriers, became frustrated. They pushed against walls that refused to yield or leaped over gaps without calculating the risk, often landing in traps. Elias, however, moved with calm determination. He did not try to force his way through. Instead, he observed the corridors, memorizing the sequence of shifts and predicting where each path would lead. When he reached a blocked passage, he waited, allowing the walls to move into alignment before stepping forward. While others stumbled and fell behind, he maintained a steady pace. His body was tired, but his mind was alert, and he knew that endurance was more than strength. It was focus, patience, and the refusal to give up. By the time the endurance maze ended, Elias had caught up with the leading competitors. He was not first, but he was close enough that the crowd began to whisper in disbelief. A human was still in the running. Some spectators began to appreciate his strategy, while others remained skeptical, convinced it was only a temporary miracle. The final trial of this stage was the most unusual. It was not about speed, strength, or endurance. It was about intelligence, adaptability, and creativity. Contestants were given a problem: to unlock a series of energy barriers and reach the center of the field. The barriers required a mix of observation, logic, and timing to overcome. Some competitors tried to brute force the barriers, using their strength or energy powers, only to trigger automatic defenses that pushed them back. Others panicked, unable to comprehend the patterns, and gave up entirely. Elias approached the barriers calmly. He studied the symbols and lights, noting which ones moved together, which reacted to pressure, and which followed predictable sequences. When he stepped forward, it was with confidence, each movement calculated to avoid triggering defenses. Slowly, methodically, he passed through the first layer, then the second, then the third. With every success, his confidence grew, but he remained humble, aware that one mistake could cost him the trial. By the end of the intelligence trial, Elias had passed through more barriers than any other contestant. For the first time, the crowd was silent. The mocking laughter was gone, replaced by stunned admiration. Aliens whispered to each other, questioning everything they thought they knew about humans. How could a species so seemingly weak outperform others who were physically and mentally superior in every way? Elias stepped to the edge of the field, his breathing steady, his posture calm. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena, signaling the end of the stage. "And now," it said, "the final event approaches." The spectators leaned forward, eager for a spectacle. The final event was a one-on-one match designed to test dominance, skill, and strategy. It was not lethal, but it demanded complete mastery of the arena, quick thinking, and the ability to anticipate an opponent's moves. When the pairings were announced, Elias' opponent was a legendary champion from the Varkan species, a towering being covered in shimmering chitin, muscles bulging beneath its armor-like skin. The Varkan had never lost a match in the arena and was known for its speed, strength, and cunning. The crowd erupted in laughter again, certain that the human had no chance. Elias walked toward the ring with calm confidence. He did not carry weapons or wear heavy armor. His only tools were his mind, his body, and his ability to adapt. The Varkan towered over him, its shadow stretching across the field, but Elias did not flinch. He understood that fear would be his only weakness, and he refused to give it power. As the match began, the Varkan charged with incredible speed, intending to overwhelm the human with brute force. Elias sidestepped, using the Varkan's momentum against it. He did not strike, he did not attack. He simply moved, guiding the flow of the match with careful precision. The audience, expecting a quick defeat, fell silent as they watched the human evade the champion's every move. The Varkan grew frustrated. It had never encountered an opponent who refused to fight directly. Each attempt to overpower Elias failed, each strategy met with patience and calculation. The crowd began to murmur, curiosity replacing laughter. For the first time, they saw that humans were different, not in strength, but in mind and spirit. The match continued, the Varkan growing tired and uncertain, while Elias remained steady. The human's endurance, observation, and adaptability were unmatched, even by a being designed for dominance. Slowly, imperceptibly, Elias began to gain control of the match, not by striking, but by guiding the Varkan's movements, predicting its actions, and avoiding unnecessary risk. By the end of the first round, it was clear that something extraordinary was happening. A human was not just surviving, he was challenging the expectations of the entire galaxy. The crowd, once mocking, now watched with awe, unable to look away. Whispers spread. Could it be that humans were not weak? Elias took a deep breath, centering himself as the first part of the match concluded. He had survived, advanced, and proven something no one had anticipated. The laughter had vanished, replaced by a tense, excited silence. The arena was ready for the second part of the challenge, where true skill, ingenuity, and the strength of the human spirit would be tested. As Elias stood in the center of the ring, the suns reflecting off his calm face, he knew one thing with certainty. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and this was only the beginning. The arena was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every movement feel louder than it really was. Aliens leaned forward, their eyes fixed on the human standing in the center. Elias, small and unassuming compared to his towering opponent, took a deep breath. He did not feel fear. He only felt focus. He knew that the second part of the match would not be won by luck or speed alone. He would need patience, strategy, and calm determination, qualities humans had honed for millennia, surviving in environments that would have crushed stronger species. The Varkin, still towering and imposing, approached slowly. Its glowing eyes flickered with frustration. It had never lost a match. It had never faced an opponent who refused to react in predictable ways. Its muscles rippled as it flexed, testing the human's reflexes, trying to intimidate him into a mistake. The crowd, once sure of a human's defeat, murmured nervously. The laughter of before had faded into quiet uncertainty. The match began again. The Varkin lunged forward with incredible speed, aiming to push the human to the edge of the arena. Elias moved calmly, sidestepping and guiding the champion's momentum with gentle, precise steps. He did not strike, he did not resist. Instead, he used the Varkin's strength against itself, redirecting energy, controlling space, and remaining balanced even as the champion attempted to corner him. Spectators began to notice something unusual. While the Varkin grew tired from repeated, wasted effort, Elias seemed almost untouched by fatigue. His movements were smooth, his breathing steady, his mind alert. The crowd realized that this human had not been trained to fight like any other species. He fought with patience, with intelligence, with observation. Every step was calculated. Every pause had purpose. The Varkin tried a new approach. It leaped high, aiming to block the human's path entirely. It expected Elias to panic or stumble, but the human remained calm. He observed the Varkin's landing point, timed its movement, and gently sidestepped to safety. The champion overbalanced slightly, its armor clinking as it scrambled to recover. The crowd gasped. A human had not only survived, but he had forced the legendary champion into a small mistake. Elias began to take subtle control of the match. He led the Varkin toward corners, across uneven ground, and around obstacles, guiding it without direct confrontation. He forced it to move constantly, to make decisions under pressure. Each movement the champion made was calculated to attack, but Elias' strategy meant those attacks were wasted. Slowly, the balance of power shifted, not through strength, but through skill, patience, and human ingenuity. The announcers, who had spent the first part mocking humanity, now struggled to find words. Their voices trembled as they reported each clever maneuver Elias made. "Incredible," one commentator said. "The human is not using strength, but he is controlling the champion with nothing but movement and timing. How is this possible?" The match continued, and Elias began to experiment. He noticed that the Varkin relied on visual cues and patterns to predict movement. Using this knowledge, he introduced small, unexpected variations into his steps. He paused where he would normally step, shifted slightly when the champion expected him to move straight, and subtly guided the Varkin into positions where it could not gain leverage. The crowd watched in awe as the human demonstrated adaptability that no species had displayed before in the arena. The Varkin, frustrated and exhausted, began to make more mistakes. It overreached, misjudged distances, and occasionally stumbled against the arena obstacles. Elias did not exploit these mistakes aggressively. Instead, he continued guiding, positioning, and conserving energy. The human understood that the match would not be won through direct attack. It would be won by endurance, strategy, and calm intelligence, the very traits that had allowed humans to survive on countless hostile worlds without natural weapons or overwhelming strength. Spectators began to cheer, softly at first, then louder as the human's skill became undeniable. Aliens who had doubted humanity now whispered in admiration. "They are clever," one said. "We thought they were weak, but they are patient, adaptive, and precise. They survive because they think." The final moments of the match approached. The Varkin, sensing defeat, made one last, desperate attempt to corner the human. It moved faster, relying on raw power, hoping that sheer force would succeed where strategy had failed. Elias, however, anticipated this. He moved in perfect rhythm with the champion, adjusting each step to redirect its energy. When the Varkin lunged, Elias sidestepped smoothly, allowing the champion to overshoot its target and come to a gentle stop near the edge of the arena. The human's calm control had created a natural victory. The Varkin, exhausted and unable to regain its rhythm, acknowledged the outcome without aggression. The match ended, not with force, but with intelligence, patience, and careful observation. The arena fell silent for a moment, as if the entire galaxy collectively held its breath. Then the crowd erupted. Cheers and applause echoed through the stands. The mockery of earlier moments was gone. The spectators, alien and human alike, celebrated the human who had defied expectations. Commentators spoke in astonishment, recounting every clever movement and strategy Ilias had used. "This human has demonstrated what no other species has," one said. "They are not the strongest, but they are among the smartest, most patient, and most adaptable beings in the galaxy." Ilias lowered his head slightly, acknowledging the crowd. He felt pride, but not arrogance. He had done what humans had always done, used intelligence, observation, and patience to survive against impossible odds. The galaxy had laughed at them, but now it watched in awe, realizing that strength was not always measured in size or power. After the match, the arena officials approached. They awarded Ilias the highest honors of the competition, recognition not for brute strength, but for strategy, endurance, and skill. Other species, even those who had dominated previous tournaments, came forward to congratulate him. Some asked for training tips, others simply wanted to understand the human approach. Everywhere Ilias went, beings wanted to learn how a small, unassuming species had achieved what no one thought possible. Outside the arena, humans celebrated quietly among themselves. They had always known their species' true strength, the ability to think, to adapt, to endure, and to survive against impossible odds. Ilias had shown the galaxy that these qualities were just as powerful, if not more so, than claws, armor, or natural weapons. The story of Ilias spread quickly. Across trading hubs, spaceports, and diplomatic stations, beings from countless worlds shared tales of the human who had bested the legendary Varkan without striking a single blow. Children, students, and apprentices began studying the human approach, hoping to understand the combination of calm, observation, and strategy that had changed the way the galaxy viewed humanity. Ilias, meanwhile, remained humble. He knew that the arena had been only the beginning. Humanity was still new to the stars, still untested in countless ways. But he also knew that his victory had sent a clear message. Humans were clever, patient, and resilient. They were capable of thriving even when the odds seemed impossible. And perhaps most importantly, they never gave up. As the sun set over the arena, casting long shadows across the field, Ilias stood quietly at the center. He looked out at the crowd, now cheering in respect, and felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage and shown that even the smallest, seemingly weakest species could accomplish greatness through intelligence, strategy, and endurance. The galaxy would never underestimate humans again. And Ilias knew that this was only the beginning of a story that would continue for generations. As humans spread across the stars, always adapting, always learning, and always proving that survival and success were not about the weapons you carried, but the mind and spirit behind them. The arena had been a challenge, a test, and a spectacle. But for Ilias and humanity, it was a reminder of something far greater, that even in a universe filled with powerful beings and impossible odds, cleverness, patience, and determination could allow a small species to shine brighter than the largest stars. The echoes of applause and admiration lingered long after the match ended, a sound that would forever remind every species in the galaxy that humans were not to be underestimated. Ilias turned away from the center of the arena, ready for the next challenge, confident that humans would face the future with courage, intelligence, and unshakable resilience. And somewhere high above the stands, the stars seemed to shimmer just a little brighter, as if acknowledging the triumph of a species that had learned to thrive through mind, heart, and spirit, rather than brute force alone. After his remarkable victory in the galactic arena, Ilias returned to the human delegation's temporary quarters. The small group of humans welcomed him with quiet pride, but Ilias did not celebrate. He knew that winning the match was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with species far stronger, faster, and more numerous than humans. Yet, for the first time, many of those species had begun to see humans differently. Ilias understood that the real challenge lay ahead, proving that humanity's strength was not just in a single match, but in its ability to thrive across a galaxy that had always underestimated it. News of his victory traveled faster than any message system humans had ever known. Holo broadcasts and communication relays sent images of Ilias' calm, strategic movements to thousands of planets. Across trading hubs, space stations, and diplomatic assemblies. The story of the human who had outsmarted a legendary champion became a symbol of hope and intrigue. Many beings who had previously mocked humans now approached their delegates with curiosity, some even offering alliances, trade, and mentorship. Elias spent the following days observing the other species. He attended demonstrations of skill, watched creatures interact in social and professional settings, and analyzed how their thinking and strategies differed from humans. Every encounter was an opportunity to learn and adapt. He realized that while humans might lack natural advantages in strength or speed, they had other traits that could make them remarkable: creativity, teamwork, communication, and the ability to see connections that others overlooked. One morning, as Elias prepared for another round of observational study, the human delegation received an invitation. The Galactic Council, an assembly of the most influential species in the galaxy, requested a meeting. The council members were known for being reserved, serious, and highly analytical. To be invited was a rare honor, and a sign that the galaxy was reconsidering the role humans might play in interstellar affairs. When Elias arrived at the council chambers, he was greeted by beings of all shapes and sizes. Some had hundreds of eyes, others glowed with natural energy. Their voices, in unison, carried the weight of centuries of governance and negotiation. Yet instead of intimidation, Elias felt clarity. He understood that the council was not there to test him with violence. They wanted insight, ideas, and proof that humans could contribute to galactic society in meaningful ways. The council posed several challenges. They were not physical, but intellectual, logistical, and ethical. One challenge involved designing a sustainable trade network between several planets that lacked consistent communication. Another required resolving a dispute between two species over shared planetary resources. In every case, the solution had to be efficient, fair, and adaptable to changing conditions. Elias approached each problem with calm analysis. He did not rely on instinct alone. He asked questions, observed behaviors, and considered perspectives that others might ignore. When one species suggested a solution that appeared fair but would fail under certain conditions, Elias identified the problem and proposed an alternative that ensured long-term success. The council observed carefully, noting how a human approached complex issues not with force or dominance, but with observation, creativity, and patience. One council member, a tall being with translucent skin and flowing energy patterns, spoke during a session. "We have studied many species over centuries. Some are strong, some are fast, some are clever. Humans, however, approach challenges in a way that we have rarely seen. You consider consequences, anticipate change, and adapt in ways that allow survival and success without conflict." "This is extraordinary." The other members nodded, some whispering agreements, others jotting notes in unknown symbols. Elias felt no pride, only understanding. This was the opportunity humans had always needed, not to dominate, but to demonstrate the value of intelligence, adaptability, and cooperation. After several cycles of challenges and discussions, the council requested a demonstration. It was not a contest of strength, nor a test of combat. Instead, it involved guiding multiple alien teams to solve a series of puzzles and logistical problems under time constraints. Each team had access to different resources and knowledge bases. Elias' task was to coordinate and lead them toward solutions without giving direct commands or using authority. Elias began by observing each team's strengths and weaknesses. Some were highly skilled but stubborn, unwilling to compromise. Others were quick learners but lacked confidence. Elias created an environment where each team could contribute in their own way. He asked questions that led them to consider overlooked possibilities. He suggested ideas indirectly, allowing teams to adapt without feeling forced. Slowly, the groups began to work together, combining talents in ways that none had anticipated. The puzzles were solved efficiently, and the logistical challenges completed with a smoothness that impressed even the most skeptical council members. Elias did not take credit for the solutions. Instead, he highlighted the collaborative success of all teams. The council recognized that humans had a unique ability to guide, inspire, and adapt without dominating or coercing, a skill that could transform galactic cooperation. After the demonstration, council members discussed the implications. Many species realized that humans could serve as mediators, strategists, and problem solvers in situations where strength alone would fail. Some suggested that humans be included in interstellar trade councils, exploratory missions, and even diplomatic negotiations. The idea of humans as contributors, rather than merely participants, began to gain traction. Elias returned to the human delegation with a sense of purpose. He understood that the victory in the arena had been symbolic, but the work in the council was tangible. Humans had the chance to carve a place in the galaxy not by fighting, but by thinking, observing, and connecting. Their resilience and intelligence could reshape relationships between species, reduce conflict, and create opportunities for cooperation that had never existed before. As the days passed, humans began to receive invitations to participate in scientific research, environmental restoration projects, and exploratory missions. Each new opportunity built upon the last, showing the galaxy that humans were not only capable of surviving, but also of contributing meaningfully to interstellar society. One evening, Elias stood on a balcony overlooking the bustling spaceport outside the council chambers. Ships of countless shapes and sizes arrived and departed, carrying goods, messages, and travelers. He reflected on how far humans had come, from being laughed at in the arena to being respected across multiple planets. The path ahead was still challenging, but for the first time the galaxy saw humans as something more than fragile creatures. They were thinkers, adapters, and collaborators. He also thought about the arena. The lessons he had learned there, patience, observation, endurance, and strategy, had been the foundation of his success. The galaxy might have laughed at humans for being small and weak, but those very traits had forced them to develop other strengths: intelligence, creativity, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. These qualities now allowed them to influence situations far beyond the arena. The next day, a delegation from a distant planet arrived with a proposal. They sought humans to help plan an interstellar research station in a region of space that was dangerous to most species. The humans' task was not to fight or defend, but to observe, coordinate, and problem solve. Elias accepted the responsibility, knowing that the success of this project would further demonstrate humanity's value in the galaxy. As humans began their work, they faced obstacles. Communication systems were unstable, environments unpredictable, and resources limited. Yet, through careful observation, patience, and creative problem-solving, they overcame each challenge. They found ways to adapt equipment to unusual conditions, designed protocols that worked for multiple species, and coordinated teams with vastly different cultures and abilities. Other species began to watch humans more closely. Some tried to mimic their strategies, realizing that strength and speed were not always enough. Humans taught, led indirectly, and inspired confidence without claiming superiority. The galaxy slowly began to understand that humans' greatest power was their ability to think, adapt, and unite others toward common goals. Months later, the research station was fully operational. Humans had not only coordinated its construction, but had created systems that allowed multiple species to work together efficiently and harmoniously. Representatives from different worlds praised their work, noting that humans had managed what many thought impossible, a true collaborative effort in a region where failure seemed inevitable. Elias, standing at the edge of the station overlooking a distant star system, reflected on the journey. From the arena to the council to the station, humans had demonstrated their resilience, intelligence, and creativity. The galaxy had underestimated them, laughed at them, and doubted them, but humans had persevered. They had shown that even a species without natural weapons or overwhelming power could achieve greatness through thought, patience, and collaboration. He realized that this was only the beginning. The arena had been a lesson, the council a proving ground, and the station a demonstration of capability. The galaxy would continue to challenge humans, but now they had the confidence, experience, and reputation to face those challenges successfully. Elias smiled quietly, knowing that the story of humanity in the galaxy was just beginning. Their strength was not measured in power or speed, but in mind, heart, and spirit. And as long as humans remembered the lessons of patience, observation, and adaptability, there was no limit to what they could achieve. The stars beyond the station seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging the arrival of a species that had learned to thrive not by force, but by understanding, creativity, and cooperation. Ilias turned to his fellow humans, ready to continue their journey among the stars. Humans had proven themselves in the arena in the council and in the construction of the research station. They had shown that strength was not only about muscles or weapons, but about endurance, intelligence, and the ability to work together toward a common goal. The galaxy had begun to take notice. And somewhere deep in space, where distant stars pulsed and planets rotated silently, the influence of humans was growing. They were not conquerors. They were problem solvers, collaborators, and survivors. Their story was no longer one of weakness or ridicule, but one of ingenuity, resilience, and hope. The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, disagreements, and obstacles that tested every skill humans possessed. Yet Ilias knew that with patience, creativity, and determination, humans could face anything the galaxy presented. They had already taken the first steps, from laughter to respect, and the universe was watching with anticipation. Humans had entered the arena once, and the galaxy had laughed. They had stood calmly, observed, and adapted. They had won not by force, but by intelligence. And now their influence spread further, proving to all species that human potential was limitless. Ilias looked up at the stars again. They were no longer distant points of light. They were destinations, challenges, and opportunities. Humanity had survived, thrived, and begun to leave its mark across the galaxy. And this was only the start of their story. Ilias stood on the observation deck of the new interstellar research station, looking out at the swirling colors of a nearby nebula. The light danced across the polished floors and reflected in the eyes of the other humans who worked alongside him. It was a reminder of how far they had come. Not long ago, humans had been laughed at, underestimated, and dismissed as fragile and weak. Now they were trusted to coordinate one of the most ambitious collaborative projects in the galaxy, guiding teams of different species to achieve what no single group could do alone. The station was designed to be a hub for learning, exploration, and problem-solving. Scientists, engineers, diplomats, and strategists from countless worlds arrived daily, bringing their knowledge, skills, and questions. Many had initially been skeptical of humans' abilities, but after months of successful coordination, those doubts had mostly faded. The humans' skill lay not in physical strength, but in thinking, adapting, and finding solutions that balanced the needs of everyone involved. Ilias walked down the main corridor, greeting the various teams. The air buzzed with conversation, as species of all kinds exchanged ideas and shared discoveries. One team was calibrating energy fields to stabilize a section of the station, while another experimented with experimental communication protocols that could link multiple planetary networks. Ilias paused near a holographic display, observing how each species approached a problem differently. Humans tended to find patterns, create structures, and anticipate obstacles before they arose. Other species often relied on instinct, raw energy, or traditional methods, which sometimes worked but often led to inefficiency or conflict. A call came from the station's command center. A nearby planetary system, rich in rare minerals, was experiencing sudden environmental instability. The station had been tasked with studying the phenomenon and helping local species mitigate potential damage. This was a challenge unlike any before, dangerous, unpredictable, and requiring cooperation among multiple groups. Ilias knew that this mission would test humans' abilities on a larger scale than ever. He gathered a team of humans and representatives from other species. They met in a large planning chamber filled with holographic displays of the affected planet. The humans began by asking questions rather than giving orders. "What patterns have you observed in the energy fluctuations?" Ilias asked. "How does the local ecosystem respond to sudden changes?" The other species shared data and observations, some hesitant at first, but slowly opening up as Ilias guided the discussion. Instead of directing each action, Ilias encouraged collaboration. He helped the team see connections between their data, pointing out subtle patterns that others had overlooked. By asking the right questions and highlighting overlooked details, he allowed the experts to arrive at solutions themselves. It was a delicate balance, one that required patience and humility. Yet the results were impressive. Within hours, the teams had formulated a plan to monitor the planet, predict environmental changes, and prevent harm to local inhabitants. The next step was implementing the plan. Ilias coordinated transport drones, energy stabilizers, and environmental sensors, assigning tasks based on each team's strengths. Some species excelled in speed, others in precision, others in analysis. By combining their skills, the group moved faster and more efficiently than any single species could have achieved alone. Ilias supervised without micromanaging, stepping in only when guidance or clarification was needed. As they worked, unexpected obstacles arose. A sudden storm disrupted sensor readings, a rare creature wandered into a critical area, and communication signals between teams lagged unpredictably. Many species might have panicked or blamed one another, but Ilias remained calm. He suggested adjustments that minimized disruption, encouraged creative problem-solving, and reminded everyone that setbacks were part of exploration. His steady presence gave the team confidence, and slowly, the challenges were overcome. Over the next several days, the humans and their allies stabilized the planetary system. Environmental readings returned to normal, and local species expressed gratitude for the careful, thoughtful approach. Ilias reflected on the mission's success. Humans had once been dismissed as weak and fragile, yet here they were, guiding a complex, multi-species operation that saved a planet from potential disaster. Their strength was not in muscle or weaponry. It was in patience, intelligence, adaptability, and collaboration. News of the mission spread quickly throughout the galaxy. Holo broadcasts showed humans working alongside other species, coordinating complex tasks, and solving problems others could not. Galactic leaders who had once doubted humans began inviting them to participate in strategic councils, research collaborations, and diplomatic missions. Humans were no longer laughed at. They were respected, trusted, and sought after for their skills. Ilias and his team returned to the station, exhausted but satisfied. They had proven that humans could thrive in the galaxy not by fighting or dominating, but by thinking, observing, and guiding others. The galaxy was beginning to understand a fundamental truth. Intelligence, patience, and adaptability could be more powerful than raw strength. As the weeks passed, humans continued to expand their influence. They helped establish trade routes between previously isolated systems, mediated disputes between rival species, and participated in research projects that explored new energy sources, technologies, and habitats. Everywhere humans went, they applied the lessons learned in the arena. Observe first, adapt, think strategically, and never underestimate the power of patience. Ilias noticed that other species were beginning to adopt human methods. Teams became more collaborative, thinkers were valued alongside the strong, and patience replaced impulsive action in many operations. Humans were not only demonstrating their own abilities, they were teaching others how to work more effectively. Their influence was subtle but profound, changing the way the galaxy approached challenges and cooperation. One day, a delegation from a distant star cluster requested human assistance in designing a self-sustaining colony on a planet with extreme environmental conditions. Ilias and his team accepted the task, seeing it as an opportunity to test human skills in adaptability and problem-solving on an unprecedented scale. The project required careful observation of the planet, understanding its ecosystem, predicting potential risks, and designing structures and systems that could endure unpredictable conditions. Ilias approached the project as he always did. He listened first, observing the planet, the experts, and the data. He asked questions that revealed hidden patterns and overlooked risks. He guided teams to think creatively, combining human ingenuity with the specialized knowledge of other species. Slowly, the plans took shape, becoming not only feasible but elegant in their simplicity and effectiveness. Construction began with humans leading coordination efforts. They managed resources, scheduled tasks, and ensured that each species' strengths were used efficiently. When obstacles arose, unexpected weather, equipment malfunctions, or unfamiliar environmental hazards, humans remained calm and guided their allies to solutions. Progress continued steadily, and what had once seemed impossible became reality. As the colony neared completion, Ilias reflected on the journey. Humans had entered the galaxy with no natural advantages, no overwhelming strength, and no extraordinary abilities. Yet through intelligence, patience, adaptability, and cooperation, they had achieved what few thought possible. They had transformed from the laughed-at species of the arena to respected collaborators, leaders, and problem solvers. The colony was completed successfully, functioning smoothly and harmoniously with the planet's ecosystem. Humans had demonstrated once again that their greatest strengths were not physical but mental and social. Their influence spread, inspiring other species to value observation, strategic thinking, and patience over brute force or dominance. Elias looked up at the stars, reflecting on the lessons humans had learned. They had survived and thrived not by overpowering others, but by understanding, adapting, and guiding. Their victories were subtle but profound, proving that intelligence, cooperation, and endurance could accomplish more than strength alone. The galaxy had watched humans laugh, doubt them, and underestimate them. Now it watched with respect, curiosity, and even admiration. Humans had become symbols of ingenuity, resilience, and the power of mind over muscle. They had shown that even the smallest, seemingly weakest species could leave a lasting mark on the universe. Elias turned back to his team, ready for the next challenge. The galaxy was vast, filled with mysteries, opportunities, and problems to solve. Humans had proven themselves in arenas, councils, planetary missions, and collaborative projects. There was still much to learn, explore, and achieve, but Elias knew one thing with certainty: humans had found their place among the stars. Their journey was far from over, yet the lessons of patience, observation, adaptability, and cooperation would guide them. No longer the species mocked for weakness, humans had become a force of intellect, ingenuity, and perseverance. They would continue to explore, solve, and inspire, shaping the galaxy not through fear or power, but through understanding, collaboration, and the unique strength of the human mind and spirit. As the station hummed with activity and ships traveled to distant systems, Elias felt a deep sense of purpose. The arena had been the first step, the council the second, the planetary missions the third, and now humanity was stepping confidently into a future of endless possibilities. The stars were no longer distant and intimidating. They were destinations, challenges, and opportunities waiting to be understood. Humans had arrived in the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as thinkers, adapters, and collaborators. They had transformed doubt into respect, ridicule into admiration, and limitation into possibility. And with every new challenge, they would continue to demonstrate the power of patience, intelligence, and the human spirit. Elias looked out at the nebula again, its swirling colors reflecting in his eyes. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but humanity had learned the secret of thriving among them. Observe, adapt, collaborate, and never give up. No matter the odds, no matter the challenge, humans had proven that they could face anything with calm intelligence and determination. And somewhere beyond the stars, the galaxy seemed to shift subtly, as if recognizing that a small species with no natural advantages had changed the balance not through strength, but through the enduring power of the mind. Humans were no longer underestimated. They were respected, admired, and a force for progress. The journey continued, and Elias knew that the future held endless challenges, discoveries, and opportunities. But humans were ready. They had proven their worth time and again, and now the galaxy was ready to see what this remarkable species could accomplish next.